Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I guarantee you probably heard about that saying your entire life. It's been shoved down your throat since the moment you known even what the word suicide meant. But I'll tell you one thing. Taking your own life, it doesn't get you anywhere. Except to the place where no one knows. Because the truth is, everybody, nobody knows what's after this. They can pretend they do, act like they do, be so strong with their words that it's basically real. But you hear the people, see to believe, all these different things. But people don't tell you the morning after you end yourself, your bully, the one that was always so horrific to you, will actually write a pretty sappy Instagram post about how you were so cool or such a nice person and how they knew you. Everybody seems to love you when you're gone, but not when you're here. It's weird. You're invisible to the world while you're still here, but when you're actually invisible to the world, people want to see you. It's funny that people will spend time at people's graves for hours and hours and talk to a goddamn grave. But nobody even took the time to call you, or ask you how you're doing, because they say every single life matters. But then it seems like no one cares about yours. How can I convince you when I can't even convince myself that you are someone worth fighting for, that you are living a life that is worth living? Someone told me one time that when you repeat a word or a phrase over and over and over again, it loses its meaning. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. See? Nothing. So then you continue, you wake up. And then one day you wake up and you forget why. Because you repeated it so many times. Not taking a moment to slow down and realizing what you have. Kids today are so ungrateful. Roofs over their heads, food in their stomach, clothes on their back, people to talk to, cellular devices to play on. I think back in the day, as long as you just had food and a roof over your head and a candle to light, you were blessed. You had everything. Where did all that go? I could try to convince you and try to tell you every single reason as to why living is amazing and why your life is worth it and why you should stay. What's pretty cool is I think they're adding a new Starbucks drink. Maybe you'll stay for that. All this seems pointless. But it's not about making the utmost light. It's about turning off the lights and going to find your clothes, your bed sheets, your toothbrush, your shower gear, instead of the noose. Because what is that quote that they use about suicide? You could always do it tomorrow. You could always wait one more day. Even if it takes 10,000 days for you to get to that day where you wake up and you say to yourself, you know what? I'm excited for tomorrow. Allow me to tell a little bit of a story. I want to redefine the word tragedy as something something that is impossible to get over. When my Nana was younger, she had a sister. Her name was Lorraine. She ended up taking her own life. And let me tell you something. My Nana was holding her body as she passed away. And holding the body of someone who just took their life is probably the easiest thing in the world to do. All you have to do is you have to sit there and wait for the paramedics, ambulance to arrive and hope that you are wrong. Hope that you are wrong, and that you hope that there is still a person there left to save. Because the truth is, everybody, they're gone. Once you're gone, you can't come back. And you may not be able to get over it. You might not be able to move on. You may not believe in a higher power. But I do believe in miracles. Sometimes the hardest thing in the world to do is take a shower. To hold that lifeless body, which is yourself. Sometimes you just need a friend to come into your room with a towel and say, you know what? You are doing this right now. You are bathing yourself. You are washing yourself, because it doesn't take something legendary. All it takes is a miracle. And I've seen a few. You take those tiny steps, those tiny actions, those tiny movements in order to make this life a less dark place. Because you may not be able to bring them back. You may not be able to hug them again. You may not be able to have one last conversation with them after they're gone, including you. But what you can do is you still can get up in the morning. You still can take a shower. You still can get ready and put your clothes on and go out to Walmart, go shop. In 20 years down the road, you look back and you realize you are happy. Because missing somebody every single day is exhausting. The world kept spinning. The world doesn't need you here in order to shine. The birds don't need you in order to sing. But you know what? Laughter is a miracle. Love is a miracle. You being here right now, being able to feel, being able to experience, to be able to go out there and do whatever it is you want to do, that is the miracle. Realize, everybody, that it is just a bad day, not a bad life. It's not a bad life. You have made it through 100% of your worst, most battering, most traumatic days. You have made it through. You realize that a bad day only lasts 24 hours. I can't tell you much, but I can tell you one thing. It doesn't last forever. No matter how you're feeling, no matter how bruised you may feel, no matter how much pressure is on you, no matter how low. Because everybody, rock bottom is not where you lay. It is where you decide to stop digging. It's when you finally decide that you want this. Because something that I've been holding since the beginning, something that I've been holding is I cannot make you want to live. We have two different wounds. Looking at yours are not going to heal mine, and you looking at mine are not going to heal yours. I may not be able to fix you, but I will be there for you. I can be that shoulder to cry on. I can be that person to talk with in the dark room. When you feel like there's no hope left, when you feel like you have nothing, when you feel like you're at the end of your rope, you tie a knot and you hold on. The example is, everybody, we all get down, we all hide, we all sulk in our own misery. But at the end of the day, everybody, if you have the opportunity, if it comes around, take it. Because you might never know when you get it again. You know, if you do decide that this is it, that this is your last day, your future is going to be very easy to predict. You know, as selfish as you want to be, you know, because I personally, you know, I had my father take his own life, and to me personally, it kind of felt kind of selfish of him. You know, and that's kind of messed up for me to say, because obviously I wasn't him, and I didn't know what he went through. But he left behind me, his children, his wife, his life. And I'll never get that back. You know, so realize this, everybody. Even if it is just me saying it. Your best days are ahead of you, not behind you. There's still more for this life to show you, still more that you need to discover. I mean, you are alive, for Christ's sake. You know, don't just wait around for your life to happen. Make one for you. Make one for yourself. You know, because everybody has their own tragedies. Everybody has their own stuff that they're never going to get over. But maybe it's not about getting over it. Maybe it's about learning how to deal with it. You know, how to live another day. Maybe then we'll get used to it. You know? Thank you guys for watching this video about suicide. I don't know why I even wanted to talk about suicide. I just did. You know? So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you could be more grateful for your life. You know, and just realize that suicide is not the way. You know, it really isn't. You know, because when you're gone, you're gone. You know, I know people probably tell you that all the time, you know, the same things over and over again. It all seems pointless. But why? You know, I just don't understand. You know, so many people take their own lives. You know, so many people die in silence because of silence. You know, if you're really hurting so much, talk to somebody. You know, reach out. You know, there's people out there that are willing to help. You know, willing to talk, willing to listen. You know, if you can't write, then listen. You know, sometimes that rings a different bell, you know? Thank you guys for watching the entire video. Get out there. Don't forget to stay positive. And let's enjoy the only life that we might ever get. You know, because at the end of your life, you realize something. You really don't know everything. And I'm not really too sure if I even want to. I don't think we're looking for purpose in our life. I don't think we're looking for meaning. Or even happiness, you know? Sorry. I think we're kind of just looking for ourselves. Get out there and stay positive, guys.